Welcome to O's Across the Pond, the show covering all things Baltimore Orioles, but from a fresh European perspective. Join us for the highs, the lows, the heartbreaks, and everything in between. Whether you're a die-hard fan or just discovering Birdland, this is your home for passionate, across-the-pond Orioles talk. Let's dive in.
Welcome back, everyone. This is O's Across the Pond. I'm Simon. I'm joined by Thomas and Grant this evening, straight after our Yankees series. Hi, guys.
Hi there.
Evening.
You can see there's a lot of energy in the room after that finish of the series. That's one of the things we're gonna cover shortly, along with previewing the next Rangers series. We've got some communities questions, and we're also going to talk about the Birds being so bashed up at the moment, the number of injuries that we seem to be consistently getting and working through with key players and otherwise. So we're going to touch on all that stuff. So how's your week been, guys?
It's been good. It's a busy week on the pod. We had Ryan Ripken on Friday. Me and Matthew did that one. That was excellent. That'll be out. That's out tomorrow morning. Obviously, this one will go out straight away. We had Stephen Heckman on, I think Wednesday night that was. That'll be out at some point this week. I've just got to edit that. But yeah, it's been all right. Busy. Planning more guests to come on and some stuff for the All-Star break. And obviously looking forward to a trip stateside in 4 weeks' time.
Sounds great. And Grant, you've been tuning into all the games, I guess?
I've managed to see most games, yeah, albeit some of them at 5 o'clock in the morning rather than 1 o'clock in the morning. I've got to that stage in life where I will reply to your 10:30 p.m. text at 6 a.m. the next morning.
Yeah, me too. I'm the same. I've not caught many live, but one I just did watch. I mean, I know you guys as well, was the final game of the Yankees series. I mean, I'll start with a dig at the Yankees, and the only thing that seems more obnoxious than some of their fan base, I'm not tarnishing them all with the same brush, is the sound effects and organ player. I mean, in one of those games, I think one of the commentators mentioned, and this might sound like sour grapes, I don't know, but a sound effect after pretty much every pitch was starting to lose the will. I don't know. And maybe just me being a bit sensitive. What do you think? Or am I skirting around the subject?
I was a big fan of the Red Sox getting trolled the other night with every strikeout they were playing, like the Netflix every time. So I'm a big fan of that. I mean, say it quietly, I don't mind New York sports fans. I just don't like New York sports teams.
Okay, good. Edit that out afterwards if you feel like it.
I think every team's got their obnoxious fans, but you do see a lot more of it in New York, and the stadium noise levels, sound effects don't help matters, but it does feel a wee bit manufactured at the games, I have to say, coming from the UK where you don't see a lot of that, and fan stuff is very much organic in terms of the chants and the things that go on. It is pretty manufactured, not just at the Yankees, everywhere.
True.
Here's a thought on the subject of it being manufactured. Obviously, every ballpark, every baseball team, you'd have the music, the organ music, and a bit of like the kind of baiting out and all that. However, is it more of a factor in somewhere like the Yankees, where it is a massive tourist trap as well? A bit like kind of, and I'm not afraid I'll piss them off because I don't like them. A bit like the manufactured, famous so-called atmosphere at Anfield.
Well,
do you know what I mean? We have it over here because of tourist traps, and we call them like tourist clubs now. Just with everybody who goes to New York at some point will want to go and see a Yankees game. And I'm just intrigued. There's 45,000 people that were there on a lovely Sunday afternoon today. How
Well,
many of them were tourists?
I mean, not zero. I remember being in Baltimore in 2019, and we watched a few games. Obviously, Orioles didn't have much going, and on the Monday night we went to Washington to watch the Nats, and they were in the midst of making a late playoff run, which obviously they did, and went on to win the World Series. And having come from Baltimore and not had much atmosphere and barely had 8,000 fans in the game, never mind 40,000, we were kind of hoping for something a bit more, that fans would be more up for the game, but it would just felt like there was a week left of the season and they, all right, it was an important game for them to win, which they did, but there wasn't a lot of people there, and the sound effects they were playing in front of probably 18,000 people just sounded ridiculous. They're putting make noise screen things up on the screen, and people just weren't into it on a Monday night. So there is that where it's just overkill and it's saturation. So that was disappointing from a Nats point of view, not to have a bit more of them turning out, because we certainly knew that they were in it. And even some of the fans we were talking to, they're like, "Oh well, I was going to just wait till the weekend games and go, but I've just decided to come tonight." So that's what obviously a lot of other fans were doing as well at that time. So yeah, it doesn't matter whether it's 45,000 or 15,000. It still seems a bit silly to do it after every pitch or every at bat.
Reminds me of there's a chant at the away fans, isn't there, in football when they don't bring many on the road, and it's you must have come in a taxi. You start chanting that, and that you do see some of the games where you think, but I suppose the irony is that whenever we go to a game, I guess we're those day trippers like you described, Thomas. But
well, we are, but we're also going to watch the game more so than just going for the sake of going, which I think there is a lot of people do that especially in the bigger cities.
True. True.
Also in Baltimore, I have to say.
So Grant, we did show some promise in this series. It wasn't a sweep, and it wasn't a complete write-off. It's a bit disappointing end. What do you think?
So I mean, game one, that was one that I did get up early and watch without knowing the score, and I have to say it was probably our best win of the year that we got through that. I just checked, it was 5-3. It finished, and on a night where Aaron Judge went 3 for 4. The Yankees got 10 hits and they got 5 walks. Our starting pitcher, Tommy Cusigano, lasted just 3 2/3 before handing over to what has been a very taxed bullpen. We somehow managed to grind out the result. We got big hits, 2 from Gary Sanchez, Kobe Mayo, Ramon Arias, all came through with run-scoring hits when needed. Jackson Holiday also had a very good night. We were saying on the pod, Thomas, on Friday that he'd been a bit quiet of late, but back 3 for 5 on that game. It came round to score a run as well. We managed to grind out. It did feel a bit like one of those 2023 games where we never looked like we would maybe quite do enough to win, and we just, were the last men standing at the end of the night. Penn kept us in it. They went 5 1/3 scoreless, which was, I'll just get the names. Aiken, Cano, Bluett, 2 innings, really saved us. And then Bautista came in for the save. He is now looking as good as he's looked this season. And I think we can say he's one of the best closers in baseball again. Fantastic outing for him to close out the 5-3 win. So I have to say, also not forget Ramon Laureano with just a ridiculous throw from right field.
I've heard he's got a good arm.
He's got a good arm, as we've kept hearing, and he's shown it. I mean, it's not one of these things we keep hearing like Tyler O'Neill can hit home runs that we've not actually seen it happen. So great throw. Right. Sanchez just manages to tag out LeMahieu at the plate. maybe we got lucky with the call. Some nights you make your own luck. Certainly the throw was good enough, and for, I assume it was the first baseman, not picking up the ball. I think it was O'Hearn, not cutting it off. He just let it go because he knew it was online, and we needed that to keep us ahead at the time, or keep us tied. So that did feel like a 2023 Orioles victory on that night, and I certainly allowed myself that morning after watching it to think, right, this is us. We are back now. We can make a run. We're winning games like this, but the rest of the series just didn't quite follow suit, unfortunately.
Anyone stand out for you, Thomas? I know there was like you said, a few highlights from Grant there. Any sort of beams of light within that series for you?
In the series or game one? A game, I just think game one doesn't just kind of show I mean, getting out of the series with just a single win doesn't really show how poor the series has been for the O's. Game two, there was the fear that we were going to get no hit. Look, we have a real issue with Zach Eflin. I don't care what anybody says, he's in middle of the road, starting rotation guy. This is what you're going to expect from him. At the end of the day, I'm not going to pull any punches here. At the end of the day, he has been nothing but piss poor since the 11th of May, and it is a constant issue now. But it's an issue that you've got to try and work around at this moment in time. There's nothing really you can do about it. There's, we know we have struggled with injuries, but is he our age? It's at 5.46 now. He's your opening day starter. Quite simply, it is not good enough, and people out there, and you see on social media and that talk about it, and stats websites and all that. I don't care about all that. Your eyes, is what you see things with, and everybody's eyes at this moment in time is seeing someone who has been poor, is struggling, because he hasn't got the firepower and that frightening kind of pace from that distance. He's reliant on his command, and his command has been missing since the 11th of May. I think they need to put out an Amber Alert to see if someone's kidnapped his command and put it in the back of a Chevy Camaro. It doesn't help when our bullpen was taxed coming back from Tampa, and as Grant touched on, game one, somehow we've managed to cling on to that with a taxed bullpen. So again, your opening day starts, come on, it was just shocking. Obviously, the only saving grace is that we didn't get a no hitter, but it's just disappointing. The offense has been disappointing. It's a similar story in game 3 today. Scored 2 in the first. But again, it'd be interesting to see how many games this season that we've only scored runs in one. We did it against Tampa. Put 8 on in the, was it the first or second inning there? Second. Yeah. And then didn't score again. It's an issue. It's disappointing, obviously. With the bullpen has been superb. It's been the number one bullpen in the AL and NL since the start of June, or it might be the middle of May actually. So it looked like these defeats, it doesn't fall on the bullpen for me. It falls on you starting game 2 falls on Zach Eflin. Just the poor start, absolutely shitting his pants and putting the bullpen under more pressure. Game 3 today goes on the offense. There's opportunities there. We were 2 for 10 with the runners in scoring position. We left 8 on base. We had a discussion about it in the WhatsApp group before we came on. In the top of the 8th there, no outs. You've got 2 runners on base. And you leave them standard. There wasn't even a steal attempt. Now, I know He was the reliever Grant for the Yankees.
Cruz, who is excellent, I have to, and played well.
No, that's what I mean.
But
he was pitching excellent stuff, but there's other. If you put pressure on him by attempting to steal, if Gunnar advances to third, he's then going to start thinking, I can't throw a wild pitch here. It puts another element of doubt in him, and there was just nothing there. It's it's lackluster. On Gunnar Henderson can't fault him, at the plate.
Looks locked in,
but the poor throw to the poor throw into Sanchez, and then obviously Sanchez has played the plate there as well, is another matter. But yeah, it was a disappointing series against the Yankees. We were lucky to get away with only dropping the 2 games instead of the 3. However, 500 on the week, the position that we are in, we just can't have another one of them like that for a while now. We just need to get back on this road of, winning the week by 2-3 games. But yeah, disappointing. But
we're not 500 in the week though. We're 3 and 4, so we've had a losing week, and we need 6. Yeah. We need 6 10 weeks, 6 15 weeks. Probably need 6 20 weeks now. I think a couple of points. I said at the time when they brought Cruz in, we had 2 on, nobody out, and I just said we've got 9 swings here to try and get some extra runs. Easier said than done. But it didn't happen. I see what you're saying about trying to make things happen. You don't see a lot of people stealing third when you're already in scoring position, so that's not as easy as being on first and trying to steal second.
It was clearly in Gunnar's thinking because he nearly got picked off doing it.
Yeah.
So there was clearly some kind of thinking behind it. Like top of the 8th against the Yankees, you've got the lead. Come on.
I mean,
at the position you're in, you need to be winning games. It's
a scoreboard pressure that we almost fell up against because we had the lead, and we were just passive in that inning. So that was a kind of key moment. I mean, I certainly didn't see the second game losing 9-0. I did not see that coming from the offense to just go completely missing. Clark Smith, he's a good, not great pitcher, but he just looked like he had everything.
What do you think of
on a string?
What do you think about Eflin?
So, look, if Eflin's fit, he's going to play. There's not a scenario in the roster where we're going to be able to replace him or do something if he gets injured, or he is. Maybe he is injured. But it's an issue. I don't think he's as bad as you think. You're saying from the 11th of May, he's had 3 wins in that period, including 7 scoreless innings against Seattle. So he has had good outings. The last 2 have been dreadful, i.e., we basically lost the game with his pitching. So I don't know. Is it fatigue? Is he just finding a bad spot? People working him out. Difficult to say exactly what the reason is. It's a long season. People go through these things, but as a worry because we don't have the roster spots to start messing about with what should have been one of our better pitchers.
Yeah.
And we don't have the wins to play with in order to have him have any off nights. And now basically we're at the situation where you're looking down the list every week at who's starting the games, and Charlie Morton's the most reliable name on that list. He has turned things around, but we need more guys to contribute, and we need to win games from all ways. That's what we did see on Friday night. Even Sagano not having it, clearly getting knocked about, getting soft singles through the infield. He still hung about for 3 2/3 and only gave up 3 runs. That's the kind of thing that we need. Eflin didn't have it, but we are going to see him next week. I've not heard anything to suggest he's injured. I was certainly concerned when he was going and was going to obviously come out the game early. I think it was at 30 pitches for the first inning, and then he was at 70 something by the end of the third. I was thinking that they might pull McDermott he was going to scheduled to start in Norfolk on Saturday night. I was looking to see if they were going to pull him because we almost look like we're a picture short. But he did play. He played well for Norfolk. There is a TBD on Wednesday for the O's against the Rangers, but I don't think it'll be McDermott because he pitched 93 pitches last night, 5 innings, 1 run. So he is somebody. He is possibly the next man up at this stage, but I don't think it's going to be for Eflin.
What do you think then in terms of today with Brian Baker? I mean, was he bad, or were the Yankees good? You know, or was it
just a tough ask for him at that stage of the game? He's pitched 32 pitches in that. It's tough for him. Look, Brian Baker has been superb, and that's why I was mentioning the bullpen as a whole. Obviously, him within that has been superb, but the whole bullpen has been superb. Yeah. So the only recent times that they faltered is because the starters have absolutely shit the pants, and you're asking them to come in, you know, after Shivano's gone, what did he go, 3? Eflin's gone 3 the other week. He went 3 and got pulled the other week in Tampa. Was it Tampa or was it? Am I thinking further back? But it's happened a few times in recent weeks, and the bullpen has been superb, and it has constantly got us out of situations like that. But there does come a point, you know, in the laws of probability where it can't carry on like that.
So it's not even probability. So most, you know, in the case of most relievers, right? Most relievers are failed starters. You know, they're guys who have tried to be starters and it's not worked for them, and they've dropped down. And they come out and they throw three outs or 1 inning of max effort, and that's usually enough. That's certainly what I think we see from Brian Baker, because he does, you know, when he's going, he's got heat. But Brian Baker has thrown on the 17th of June, on the 18th of June, on the 19th of June, and then on the 22nd of June today, where it finally cracked. He gave up 3 runs, 3 hits and 2 runs. So that is the reality of the starters not being good enough. And the big problem that I've got is that was always baked into the model. You know, the starters were never going to be Corbin Burns, who're going to throw 7 or 8 innings of 1-run baseball regularly. We've got nobody that's going to do that. So it's always going to come down to the relievers. And we do have some depth in Norfolk, but not MD that's a kind of Brian Baker level guy or would come up and show anything like that.
No.
Plus, we'll get so many relievers that we can't replace. I mean, we sent down Cano, who I had actually forgotten we could option because he's kind of been such a permanent fixture of the bullpen. We sent down Cano just to get somebody, so he's in all probability 15 days before we can use him again. He will get a bit of rest. I'm sure he'll get a bit of physio.
There'll be a phantom IL this week.
Might need to be IL somebody to bring him back.
Without a shadow of a doubt, it's happening.
But then who do you do? What do you do there? Because we'll get Bluette, who's been excellent. Aitken's been excellent. We've got a lot of guys who have been good, but have been just used too often, and I think that's what we saw today with Baker, unfortunately.
Okay, well, we'll move on to something else. I mean, we've touched on it a little bit, but we saw today a horrible clash at home plate with Maverick Handley, doing all he could to intercept a run coming in. He went off. We suspect, because obviously all 3 of us are doctors, but it might be something to do with concussion. But he's a long line of injuries this season, and we've seen others this week. What do you think, Thomas? Is this? I mean, that was obviously an unfortunate thing, but is something else going on? I know from a European perspective, when there's a spate of injuries, people start looking at the coaching and the way they're working. In football, for example, Arsenal, a lot of fingers are pointed at them over the last couple of seasons. Or is it just a bit of bad luck? What is going on?
Well, firstly, on that Maverick Handling collision today, I said it reminds me of the Ray Lewis, Chad Ochocinco, which obviously being a Bengals fan, so you've probably seen, and anyone who's watched any highlights of American football would have seen that clip. If you haven't seen it, it's extremely funny. Go and give it a watch. Look, yeah, we have had some extra injuries this week. Adley's been placed on the IL, and they've said he's not going to be back until after the All-Star break. I will be surprised if he's back after the All-Star break within. I'd probably say with obliques, it's 4 to 6 weeks. So I think he could be out for a little bit longer. Obviously, the Westberg one, Tony's Mazzolino thinks it's only going to be 2-3 days. So hopefully it's just a spray and he hasn't done obviously what Cowser didn't.
What the hell is obliques, by the way? I've mentioned it and I've even used the word myself. And I remember when years ago when people started talking about metatarsals and I was talking about them as if what the hell is it?
I think obliques is something. I think it's around your abdominal area.
Right. Okay.
I got no abs. Got an 8-pack of bean Beretti in the fridge. It's the closest I'm getting to a 6-pack. No, I'm joking. I don't drink. Yeah, and look, we have struggled. We have struggled with injuries, and we have had at times throughout the season a substantial IL list. Take into account, a couple of the pitchers who were on IL kind of carried over from last year.
Yeah.
You'd had Rodriguez go down. He's made out of sugar paper, so he's almost guaranteed to go down anyway.
Povich recently as well. Povich.
Yeah,
Povich.
The Povich one, and I don't think that was an injury.
Right. Okay.
I think that was they'll put you on the IL instead of kind of formally option you down, go and have a few days rest, have a few rehab starts, see if you can work something out. I think it was a fancy matter. I think a few people are thinking the same thing. But people also need to remember it's a 162 game season. We put ourselves in a position early on in the season where to try and get back into it, it's kind of all guns blazing and people are going to be expected to do a lot more things. So injuries are going to happen. Losing Adley is a disappointment, and it puts us in a predicament now because Maverick Hanley couldn't hit a barn door with a banjo, but he's great. He's great behind the plate. Gary Sanchez is better at the plate, but I don't think he's as good behind the plate.
I've got a big issue that I think might develop, especially, obviously at the moment they're saying Adley is going to be back until after the All-Star break, but as you say, the chances are these things drag on and, it's 4 to 6 weeks and it's more like six and a bit weeks. So that's a big problem because obviously Adley, he had a slow start. He was coming right much more back into things recently. But the bigger problem I have is Gary Sanchez. Now, as we saw today, Gary Sanchez had a very poor game. Now, I'm not blaming him because he wasn't supposed to start. He wasn't supposed to play today. He played 2 consecutive games, which he's not been used to, obviously, so he won't be built up to that level of endurance. He was really, really poor at the plate today. He just seemed to be standing up, taking 3 swings and get struck out. And he obviously had a few plays at the plate which he came up on the wrong side of, either not getting the tag or dropping all right, not brilliant throws, but other nights you maybe hope your catcher does something for us there. So I just wonder if he is going to be asked to play every 2 games or 2 games and then rest for the 3rd game, if he is quite built for that, because he's also somebody that doesn't have a 6-pack. And
does any catcher, Adley's got a dumper truck on him.
I mean,
something he's done is bending down for a Twinkie.
I'm a long way from being an athlete, but I do find it unbelievable that these guys that are getting paid millions of dollars to play professional sports don't get themselves
have a BMI of 96.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem strange. Look at some top players we've seen, not just for the Orioles, but you think of the one that springs to mind is the Blue Jays.
Oh.
I mean, they've got every second guy there is a big fan of hotel breakfast, clearly. and I just don't get it. How these teams, they're hundreds of millions of dollars a payroll. They've got coaches, they've got dietitians, they've got all sorts of supplements, whatever, training. It seems very strange that they get so many guys out of shape that it's acceptable. And obviously, most of them contribute positively, but you would imagine they can contribute more positively. So that could be an issue for us, especially. It doesn't look great for Handley. We've not heard it, or we've certainly not checked if there's been any news post game. But if he's concussion, then he's out for this week at least. And we're then probably pulling up Trump again.
There comes an issue. The issue that really does come if Handley is going to be out for the week, or if Handley ends up also, if it's not concussion and it's an injury and he ends up on the IL. That then becomes a massive issue, because where do they go from there?
Remind me of the rules again on the concussion. What's it? Is it a different list? The concussion.
Is it 8 days concussion?
I can't remember. Maybe I've got it.
I'm not too sure, but I read somewhere before about
7 days.
I don't know. I don't know how it'd work. Obviously, because the 40 man's full, you'd have to DFA somebody,
right?
But a certain backup catcher that we let go in the off season has just opted out of his minor league contract, and he was scratched from their AAA game yesterday.
Oh,
so I mean, I would certainly, if Adley is going to be out for a period, well, he is going to be out for a period, I would have no real issue with signing James McCann. I think that's a better option than Handley.
Yeah.
But the issue, well, the main issue they'll have is it's two right-handed catchers, but there's not much you can do about that. You just need to go with it.
Is it too soon for Basayo? Is that what the thinking is?
Well, so Tony Manzolino came out yesterday after it was clear that Adley was not in the lineup and hadn't been confirmed he was going to be IL, but it seemed quite inevitable at that point. And I think had a pretty fairly scripted party line about Basallo, and we want him to hit every mark in AAA before he comes up. He's still only 20 years old. So yes, we can probably point to the service time manipulation and say they don't want to call up Basallo until he's not going to count as a full year or a year of service.
I think he's past that point, isn't he?
No. I think is it 100 at bats or something, or 50 days? I think it's something like that. He would definitely pass it if they called him up now and he stayed on the roster. The other thing is, what they don't want to do is call up Basallo and it's only for 4 weeks, and he plays reasonably well, and then he's sent back down. Everybody's moaning, and he kind of feels, because they're not going to DFA Sanchez. I doubt they'll DFA Sanchez even in that situation, unless we were getting to the last final weeks of the season and there was no place for Sanchez anymore on the team. So that's kind of two dynamics. It seems that they've gone out of their way to make it known that they're not on the cusp of calling up Basallo. If I've still got the Norfolk game up, he did have a good night last night for them.
Do you think that was... Trying to think. Do you think that was a kind of an ill thought out reply from Manzolino?
No, I think
because if it comes down to it, say they don't consider McCann, and say Hanley's either out for a week with concussion, or if he lands on the 15th day, for example, then you have a real problem. And then you go and make that call.
They wouldn't.
Do you know what I mean?
They would call up Chadwick Trump. They would call up who's been in before. That's what they would do if Handley's out. I think if that, because they'll need to play tomorrow. So it's not that they don't have MD, and I mean they could find somebody to be a defensive catcher. even tomorrow if they needed to. So I think they've gone out of their way to shut down the Basallo speculation, despite the fact that we're trying to, or Simon and Thomas are trying to reignite it.
No, I mean, Ryan spoke about it the other day, and there'll be a teaser clip going out about it soon. He's discussing Samuel Basallo. Look, everybody knows, everyone is high up on Samuel Basallo.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with what you're saying. We're getting to the stage.
What people are saying about like service time and all that, but you call Jackson Aldi up at 20 years of age. Wow.
So, other issue is if we were closer to being a playoff team this year, I think it's a different. You take more of a risk and you say, right, well, okay, we're going to lose a year of Basallo here, but it's worth it to try and get to playoffs. We're still not at that stage, despite the fact we've had a good few weeks. We've had a losing week this week. You know, I still don't think we're above that line where we start throwing the kitchen sink at it. I don't think we're buyers at the trade deadline at this stage. Even if we stay kind of at this point, or we keep playing close to 600 baseball. So that's why they're shut down the Basallo story. You know, yes, that was before Handley is possibly injured, but Handley's a defensive catcher. You know, we can find a defensive catcher for if that's what we need. Yes, it would be nice to have somebody a bit better, and maybe James McCann is worth a phone call.
And there's no example this season of bringing back an ex-player and it not going amazingly well. So, you know, if we bring McCann back, then we can just add to that statistic, really, can't we?
On the flip side, on the kind of sticking with the Basallo thing, so it is like, you know, when he's knocking on the door and like I'm gonna look at the kid and say, we all understand that it's a massive step from AAA to the big leagues. It is. We've seen players go up and struggle. Jackson Holliday struggled. I get that. You're in a situation where you need to win games. We're also in a situation where the bats can only score in one inning a game. You've got a backup catcher who's now possibly going to become your everyday catcher to an extent if Adley Rutschman is going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks, and Gary Sanchez, who is batting average is at about 200, maybe a bit less than that. So try and do something. You know, even if it is just for 4 or 5 weeks, you're losing Adley Rutschman, who is finally managed to get going, and your replacements are Gary Sanchez, Maverick Hanley, and Chadwick Trump. Neither of them, all three of them, can do anything relatively what we need at this moment in time with a bat.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that, but I still don't think we're close enough to being a playoff team to make that move. I think if we were closer,
but are we close enough to not being a playoff team to give up on potentially scoring runs and winning games?
Well, we're not far away from giving up on this season. I mean, I've been saying that for weeks. You know, our path to victory is very narrow here, and it's more narrow after this week. It's even more narrow without Rutschman. So yes, you could bring up Basallo and he gets 4 weeks to get going, and then Rutschman's back and you got to send him down. You know, I don't see that being as positive a move as it could be. I don't, as we know, guys are going to come up and take a while to get going. I think the plan for Basallo is for that to be in September. And I think they're going to stick to that plan. And I still don't think we're close enough to change that plan. We've not played well enough this season. I'm not saying we're definitely not going to be a playoff team, because we could put a couple of good weeks together and get back into it, but we're not there.
He's not known for his small ball, is he, Basallo? I haven't looked at statistics from this season, but from watching him over the last year, his slugging is obviously impressive. His catching is impressive, but his small ball, well,
I mean, I think if once he gets into the team and it's an inevitability at this stage, then that is what we're going to see. So last night in Norfolk, he went 2 for 4 with a walk, 3 RBIs, not a home run, but that's what we're going to see. I think they'll stick to the plan. I know what you're saying. Yes, it would be good to roll the dice on it, but is it worth giving up a full season of Samuel Basallo as a 25-year-old? That's a lot.
I don't see it happening. I'm just putting arguments out there. I think it makes more sense. The other thing is, Adley being out, you've lost a designated hitter there.
Yeah.
The guy comes up, can play first base, can catch. Ryan O'Hearn can DH. You've got Gunnar Henderson's got a DH probably once a week. So it just makes even more sense to be able to have that versatility.
Yeah, and we'll get there, but not this month.
So no, that's what I mean. But
no, I know what you're saying, and as a fan, you want to see them try to throw everything at it because
I just don't see in September. The only way he's going to come up in September, and this is what disappoints me and fucks me off. The only way we see him in September, because of where we are now in the season, unless we go on a ridiculous run and win 30 of the next 40 or something, the only way we are going to see him in September is if we are out of it. I would rather see him now.
No,
and potentially win games.
They'll get an expanded roster in September regardless. So there will be two extra players coming up in September, of which he at the moment will be one. I mean, yeah, I don't know the exact rules for your service time or your rookie status being moved, but that he could come up September
and
play.
I'm not against bringing somebody up a little bit earlier.
Yeah,
the service time argument annoys me. If the kid's got the talent that everyone can see, like, what's bringing him up and losing a year on him? Do you know what I mean?
Well, it's a year of him at age 25 when he's possibly one of the best players in the league. So, yeah, and I can completely see that argument, and it's a lot of money you're paying somebody to replace him at that stage. So, I think that's what they'll do. Yes, I do think if we were closer and we were more of a 500 team at the moment, it's worth taking the risk because the catching options are pretty average. Even Sanchez is probably not going to set the header light, despite the fact he's had a very good week. So I think that's what they'll do, and I kind of agree with it. As boring as it is, I can see the logic in it, and let's hope, because his numbers in Norfolk are looking better every week. Let's hope he is as advertised when he gets up, and it doesn't take him more than 6 months to get going, and we see him. We get a proper look at him this season. And yeah, I accept what you're saying. I think if we get to that stage, September, especially if we are out of it, I think he's going to come up and get a lot of at-bats, and Gary Sanchez isn't at that stage in the season. So that's a different decision you make at that point. At this stage, I mean, I've been saying it for weeks, the season might well peter out, and it doesn't take a lot for it to peter out. As we've seen this week, we've had a reasonably competitive week. We lose a few close games, and we're on a losing week, and our path is narrowed just in the space of those kind of 3 or 4 days.
It's barely petered in, has it? So looking ahead on the Rangers side,
yeah.
we're heading into a series with a team who it's been up and down. It's not brilliant. They seem to be much better at home. They're around 490. I think I saw before today. People are talking a lot about the temperature. I don't know whether that's because it's unseasonably warm in the UK and we're just more sensitive to it. And but they're talking about in Fahrenheit like over 100.
Right.
and with our roster being stretched with some of the recent games, do we go into this one with much optimism?
I mean, I think we go in with as much as we have, in that we're playing the Rangers this time, and we've just come off a week where we've played the Rays and the Yankees, both of whom have been much better teams this season than us. So I mean, at the moment, the pitching, we've got Trevor Rogers up against lefty Patrick Corbin for the Rangers. Corbin's he's having a decent enough season, but he's by no means perfect. Got 3.91 ERA, a 1.24 WHIP. But in 13 appearances this year, he has had no scoreless outings, albeit he's only given up 4 runs once, which was last time out. So he's starting to show a wee bit of strain. We obviously do need to win that game. We're not quite in must-win territory, but we're getting there. But then the rest of the week, we have got Tuesday, we've got Charlie Morton up against TBD for the Rangers. Obviously, Charlie is now the ace of our staff, so we're hoping that he continues his return to form. But Wednesday night, it's 2 TBDs. Nobody's announced a pitcher. I'm not even sure who would be the next man for us. Would it be Sagano at that point?
Don't know. If it's over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, Sagano's going to struggle as well, because every time there's a bit of heat, he wilts.
Yeah, so I don't know if, as I said, I look to see Chase McDermott would be one option, but he played on Saturday for Norfolk, so I would doubt that they're going to bring him up.
We one of those sort of mix and match games where we have a starter, have we got enough?
Well, I mean, that depends on how the first 2 games go.
True.
Obviously, we've got an off day on the Thursday, so you could kind of throw everything at it. I do think we'll need to bring somebody up for that game. I suppose we'll get Scott Bluett still going, who could maybe give us 3 innings, so you could kind of piece Bluett and Aitken and get 5 something out of that. But I'm just going to look at the 40 man. But I mean, Cody Petit is injured. Yeah, I don't know who they would. I can't think. Brandon Young is in the. Brandon Young, could he come back? Is he still playing?
I forgot about him.
Fit and healthy for Norfolk.
He did all right, didn't he, when he came up?
He did okay, but in the context of not expecting much from him. So
true.
He came in when
we were on our arse.
Shit as we are.
Yeah. So there's limited options, shall we say, and none of them are going to be as good as what Trevor Rogers would have been as an option, and he's been up and down, obviously. So I think there will be a move made, whether it's a starter or whether it's a kind of long man to try and piece it together. That'll probably depend on how the first 2 games go, and if it continues as it is, where the bullpen are throwing 4+ innings or using 4+ guys every night, then we're in deep problems. Now, other side of that coin is a lot of other teams are in deep problems as well, and it's not just us. But they've maybe built up some wins in terms of offense.
Yeah, do they pose much of a threat? Because I must admit, I'm not as up on the Rangers this season as I have been.
They've got Wyatt Langford, who was one of their prospects they brought up, who's pretty decent. Over the last month, Marcus Semien has been their best hitter. He's got a 3.33 average, a 965 OPS. Not many other contributors. I mean, he is the best, and there's not much built behind him. Overall, over the season, the Rangers are ranked below average in most offensive categories. They're 28th in OPS, so you've got to be pretty bad to be worse than the Rockies in that category. They're 26th in batting average and in runs scored. So on the face of it, this does present an opportunity, and if we are going to go on a kind of recovery run after this last week. It has been a pretty brutal week in terms of the games we've played and what we've had to do to win the 3 games that we've won. Then that is probably just as well. We're playing the Rangers. However, as we saw when we were in Sacramento, we thought we won the first game against the Athletics and thought, right, we're in business, 6 in a row, here we go. Didn't quite work out like that. So we need to be on. If we can't go up for these games, then the season is over, because we need to win these games this week.
Okay. I wanted to ask you something today. Gunnar was mic'd up today during the game. I quite like talking to the players, if they're, like, for example, when they're on the bench and there's a bit of mucking around and you get this little insight during the game. It's a couple of quick questions. I'm not sure how I mean, obviously Gunnar seemed distracted. To me, it was like smoking a cigarette whilst drinking a Coke whilst trying to swat a wasp in your car. It had that sort of feeling where you're going to crash, and I might be overreacting, but I'm not a fan. Thomas, what do you think?
I don't know. Jackson Holliday did it earlier on in the season. I'm trying to think who it was against. I think it might have been against the Yankees early on in the season. I think he did it. I might be thinking too far back there. It's a tough ask to ask infielders to do it. But who do you give it to? Who do you give it to in the outfield?
Mullins.
It's just one of them. It's just, to be honest with you, I thought the coverage today on Roku was poor. You hardly saw any of the game. You saw replays. And I like seeing replays when I've actually seen the game as well, but I'm seeing replays of something I haven't seen. So I didn't like it. I'm not a fan of the things that they've done this year as well, where they're going into where they're going down into to speak to the coaches and that in between, and I don't like it. It's weird times, what I mean.
So I don't mind it. Obviously, I assume the player has a refusal if he doesn't want to do it. But there's obviously only so many guys going to ask. They're not going to ask your fourth outfielder to do it when hardly anybody knows who he is. I thought Gunnar was quite good. He tried to answer the questions. He tried to kind of give quips. He was obviously relaxed to do it. He's done it before. He's been in front of the cameras for a few years now. The problems I have with this and with the 20 seconds chatting with the manager or somebody in the bench is you don't learn anything. You don't get any insight. People are giving stock answers because a camera's just been chucked in front of their face and they're expected to give a 10-second or 15-second answer. I really enjoyed the game on Roku for one reason, which was Buck Showalter.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you enjoyed it because it was free. You're tighter than 2 coats of paint.
Well, it's built into the cost of the subscription I pay for all year. But I thought Buck Showalter was excellent, and the number of things he came out with where you learn something or he gave a good insight was brilliant. Now, maybe if you watched him and he was doing 4 or 5 games a week, you might start to hear some doubles and duplicates. But
Turn and burn O'Hearn again. Yeah,
that's a Ben McDonald special, isn't it?
Yeah. He's like one of those key rings you get with 5 buttons on
Ben
it.
McDonald's excellent. It is different doing it if you're doing 4 or 5 games a week as a home broadcaster, but for him to come in, I would certainly be all in if they were going to hire Buck with Masson to do the games. I thought he was brilliant.
Just not a fan of it.
No.
I say that in terms of managers and players getting interviews in between innings, having players mic'd up. I don't like it. It's like when they brought in handshakes in soccer before the game. Like, you go back to go back. This just sound really old here, but we all know. Go back to the 90s and early 2000s. Watch the Premier League. There's a clip of Gary Neville, captain of Manchester United, and his brother, Phil Neville, captain of Everton, in the tunnel at Goodison Park, which is, you crammed in like a tin of sardines. And Phil looks at him and kind of wants to try and speak to him, and Gary Neville fobs his brother off. You're going into bat. I just don't like it. Just like get. I think the moment you step off the coach at the ballpark or the football ground, anytime you go into something, that's it. Get game face on. Let's go.
I think that is one of the issues
It's
with baseball.
Utter woke nonsense, to quote Sean Dyche.
I think that is one of the issues with baseball. Having 162 games, a lot of them start to feel a bit routine. You're starting that game at 11:35 in the morning. Is that right? New York time. So I mean, all credit to the people that turned up at that time of day, but that's not the right time to play sports. Sports is an afternoon and evening thing. So the fact that there's even room in the schedule to have games kicking off at 11:30 in the morning, is just one of those that there's too many games, and some of them become routine or have a routine feeling about them. Whereas football is 1 or 2 games a week for 90 minutes. Guys are locked in. So yeah, I mean, as I said, I thought the coverage today, I enjoyed it, but I don't really see the point in the making up players. I think you get 3 guys in the booth, all of whom know the game. They've got all sorts of research teams and stats in front of them. They could and should add things that way from a broadcast point of view.
Okay, thanks. So we've got some community questions. So I'll start out with one from Belgium, Nina in Belgium, via Reddit. So it's linked to a bit what we've talked about. But with the injury bug hitting hard, which Orioles bench player or call-up has impressed you the most, and who do you think deserves more playing time?
It's a tough one. I mean, we've mentioned it today because of the position the O's have found themselves in, and the importance is on winning games. So trying to find at-bats or playing time, it's always going to be tough. Kobe May would probably be the one for me. He hasn't played much the last couple of games. It's time pitching matchups with him. He looks a lot more settled. Maverick Hanley's been fantastic behind the plate. However, he's shocking at the plate. So as we've said, with Adley looking like he's going to be out, I think Adley's going to be 4 to 6 weeks. There is going to have to be a change. But to answer the question, I'd probably say Kobe Mayo who's come in and stepped up. And
yeah,
I wouldn't say. But in saying that, I'm not Ryan Mountcastle's biggest fan, and I don't think we've missed him. So I think it was an easier spot to fill.
Yeah, the name that's on my radar now, because I think the outfielders have got into a good routine with Mullins, Cowser, Laureano, and Carlson all playing, splitting the playing time and doing well, certainly in the field, and some of them doing well in the bench and the plate, is Tyler O'Neill, who is rehabbing with Aberdeen today. So the chances
it's raining though, so we might dissolve.
So the chances are that he is going to be available again at some point. My feeling, let's say that was this week or next weekend, my feeling is that he would take the Luis Vasquez spot on the roster, and they would play. They would basically play him as a kind of DH, and split the time that way. We're certainly not going to see O'Hearn needed in the outfield much at all. So that's what I think they would do, at least to get a look at him and see if he can contribute. That would be a big bat to get going. Obviously, we've seen guys having slow starts, and we've talked about it on this podcast. Where Laureano had a slow start, Sanchez had a slow start, Charlie Morton had a glacially slow start. These guys have got going and contributed, so it would be very unlikely if O'Neill did manage to get fit that he would be as poor at the plate as he'd been. at the start of the season. So that would be huge if we get him going as the power hitter, and then if he was properly going and playing really well, then you can have a more realistic discussion about optioning Carlson for his spot. But at the moment, we're not really using the bench the way that we did previously because we just don't have the players on it. We've got kind of Mayo's like a big battle on the bench at the moment, and we're using, Laureano or Carlson or DHing some nights as well because we've got the 4 outfielders going. So it's just not, there's just not the same depth at all. But O'Neill's probably the next man up. If he can prove his fitness, then we may well see him in the next week or so.
Okay. JJ from Austin in Texas has asked us, if the trade deadline was tomorrow, what kind of move should the Orioles make? A proven arm, a utility bat, or stay put and trust the depth?
We discussed this in the week with Stephen Heckman and from the Baltimore Battery, and on Friday with Ryan Rifkin. So JJ, you're gonna have to listen to them episodes to find out. Now, look, one thing for certain, Ryan, to quote Ryan Rifkin the other day, they're gonna be retooling and not rebuilding for next season. The core talent is there. It's there. It's got to be there for a long time. It's about adding the right pieces and getting the pieces in place a lot earlier than what they did last year, regardless of the position. Come the deadline, this term, sellers, buyers at the deadline, and all that. The only players that we will be moving on are players that are going to be able to contract at the end of the year.
Yeah,
unless they try and go out and get if they can put a trade together. We talked about this with Stephen the other day. I don't want to say too much on it because that will be out, but they could try and probably get a starting pitching guy in who's out of contract in the summer, but I don't know. But it's not it's just going to be retooling. Our players going to go, Cedric Mullins is going to go before the deadline. Unfortunately, his stock is, sinking faster than the Kersk. So what you're going to get for him, I don't know. But it's retool. I don't like the term sellers because we're not selling anyone off. We're getting rid of players that are out of contract in the summer and trying to bring in players that can help us out even next season or into the future. What they can't do though is put all their eggs in one basket and go out and just go, that's the guy that we want to be in the starting rotation next year.
Yeah,
I'll have 2 or 3 targets because they can't do it.
So I agree with that, Thomas. I don't see us being big buyers, even if we improve our record and we're properly in the wildcard race. The number of pitching injuries that teams have had around the leagues this season, coupled with the number of teams that think they're still in contention, given the expanded playoffs, means that the price for starting pitching is going to be huge. And I don't think that we will be close enough as a team to pay that price. If you're a few games inside the wild card race and you can make a reasonable assessment that you're going to be a playoff team, then yes, you can go and get those arms or go all in on those arms for a 2-month rental to make a 3rd month in October. I don't see how we could make that assessment at this stage. So I don't imagine we're going to make any acquisitions significantly. If there is a way to make acquisitions, it would potentially be similar to how we acquired Zach Eflin last year, where we gave up money. We paid his relatively chunky salary for last season, this season, and didn't give up a lot of prospects, and got him for over, a full season extra this season. Possibly there's options for those type of acquisitions. I don't think we're going to do any 2-month rentals. And as I've said before, I know I'm pessimistic, but the most likely scenario is that we do assess that we are out of the race, and we actually sell off a lot of guys who could well be Mullins, O'Hearn, Dominguez is now having a great season. He's going to fetch a price. Soto, possibly Eflin, Sagano. All these guys are out of contract anyway. I don't think we're going to trade MD that is still under contract next year. I would doubt that happens, as that would be the retooling rather than rebuild phrase that we've heard. So at the moment,
you can still retool by losing a guy like Ryan Mountcastle and utilising him in a trade to get someone into it.
Next year. But who's going to
moving on?
Yeah, nobody's going to take Ryan Mountcastle this year, though. They might take him in the spring.
No, I was using that as an example. There's a player who's under team control for a little bit longer, extensive amounts.
If you could get the right player, but I mean, that's kind of what we saw. We gave up Boston Hayes for Dominguez, which I think it's worked out reasonably well. Dominguez had a bad start, but was it Soto, or both of them?
Both of them, really. Yeah.
Anyway, that's part of what happened last season. I was amazed at how many moves we did make last season, albeit we were in a completely different position than we will be this year. So we'll see what happens. The most likely scenario will be that we're kind of selling off these guys that get 2 months left with us, and it's just a case of what we get back at that point, whether we're getting back, kind of single A, double A prospects, or we're getting back players who could potentially help us next season, because we are going to need to make a lot of acquisitions this off-season to cover the roster that we will need next year to supplement our core players.
There we go. JJ, how's about that for a comprehensive answer? Dean in Teesside, how confident are you in the handling of the bullpen and lineup during this stretch of injuries? Would you do anything differently? We've touched on a little bit of this, but is there anything else you'd like to add?
So, on the subject of the bullpen, we've mentioned, look at simple stats in the eyes, say it how it is. The bullpen's been outstanding apart from a couple of bad performances in Tampa. The performance of the day, obviously in the Bronx, but as I've said, Eflin shit and his kicks didn't help them. In regards to the lineup, I think it's been managed fairly well. I would have liked to have seen possibly Kobe Mayo got a few more bats. They are kind of only playing him against lefty pitchers at the moment. But again, we're in the position where winning games is important, so you need to put the best players out there to win games. And I think it's just hard with the position that we are in.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I don't think Mancino's made a lot of errors at all. I think he's done a pretty decent job. There was today, I thought he made a bold call, taking Kramer out after, was it 75 pitches? He was looking decent enough. Now, I'm not saying it was a mistake to take Kramer out. Obviously, that worked, putting Aiken in and getting the out off the left-hander. But just given how the bullpen was, could we have pushed Kramer another inning? I'm sure we could have. Could we have then used Aiken for a full inning rather than just one batter? Again, I'm sure we could have. Would it have changed the result? Possibly not, but we were probably still going to use Baker for the 8th. But it was just interesting, given the state of the bullpen, that we chose to do that. And we have seen Mancino pushing the starters that bit more, certainly far more than Hyde had done in his time. So that surprised me today. But I think he's done a decent job. I also don't think there's too much else you could do, because we do kind of need to be aggressive. As you said, Thomas, we can't start messing about the lineup and doing the Hyde of giving everybody at bats. We don't have that roster at the moment. So as a kind of get your guys in, hopefully Westberg is not going to miss any time and we'll be back for the Rangers series. That would be a big help for us. So there's not too much we can do. I think he's done a good job.
Okay. And for any American listeners, you may have heard Thomas reference the soiling of some kecks. Kecks is I believe, like a Merseyside reference, and Merseyside was famous in the late 80s, early 90s for kecks being made of highly flammable material in the form of shell suits. So there's a bit of Googling for you to do there if the word kecks is not used over the pond. I don't know.
Trousers.
But either way, they were soiled. You probably worked it out, but I thought I'd just add a bit of flavour.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, last question from the community is Monica has asked us, despite the setbacks, the O's are still in the mix. What's keeping your faith alive in this team, and what's testing it the most? So we appreciate your positivity. Are we still in the mix?
Simple answer. The simple answer. I'll say it at this moment in time, going to the next run of 9 games against AL opponents. So at this moment in time, most definitely still in it. I don't think that, although we've had a poor week this week, well, a bad week, we'll say poor, but we've had a bad week this week. I wouldn't say that we're anywhere near out of it yet. I think we'll know more after the next 9 games.
Yeah, so at the moment, the O's are 33 and 44, and to get to 86 wins, which is what has got the third wildcard place the last 2 seasons, we would need to go 53 and 32 in the remaining 85 games, which is a 624 winning percentage. So it's not out of the realms of possibility. I think at the start of this week, that was a 610 winning percentage that we needed. So we're now up to 624. So we need a good week, certainly. We need to, hopefully sweep the Rangers.
Yeah.
We need a bare minimum 4-2 week. And hopefully better than that.
Yeah, it's huge. Obviously, the All-Star break coming up. We've got the Rangers, then the Rays, then the Rangers, then we've got the Braves, and then we've got the Marlins that takes us into the middle of July. So over the course of the next 2-3 weeks, there are plenty of games there that are winnable. So I'd say look at these next 9. The Rays have been playing outstanding baseball.
Yeah,
I think I have said that I think they will struggle the second half of the season because they played a lot of games on the road because of the Florida weather. However, seeing the performances the last week, they might be my sneaky pick for the AL East ahead of New York. But 2 series coming up against the Rangers, Braves that are struggling. There was Ryan Ripken thinks that we've got more of a chance of coming back from our position than the Braves have in their position in their division. So you look at it after the All-Star series, that's where the difficult run is. But the next 9 games is huge. If we go 7-2 in them 9 games.
I must admit, Monica, the only thing keeping my faith going in us being able to get a wild card spot is some of the players that are still due to return. A little bit of blind faith, I suppose, as well. But I must admit, I'm not convinced. I think it's too far now for us to make up. But I hope I'm wrong. So I'm gonna. I think I've got about another fortnight in me where I can cling to something. But if we don't pick up like the guys have just said, then I think we just have to make the best that we can.
It's going to need a special run at some point. We can't keep ticking. We're not going to keep ticking this off 4-2 as we've seen this week, because you run into, we need to just get hot, and we've just not done that. Even when it's looked like the offense is going, we've had the Westberg injury or Adley injury. I mean, that's 2 big players to not have played these 2 games against the Yankees, and that's how narrow our path to success is. It's so we're not out of it, but we need to. There's some Orioles magic has to happen, basically.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll finish on some positives if that's all right, and I'll start off this week. My favourite player, as I've mentioned over the last couple of seasons, has been Westberg, and notwithstanding his hitter clock violation, which was a bit embarrassing because I can't even remember the last one of them. He's been excellent. He's one of those sort of. He's a little bit unsung. He's got power. His at-bats are clever. He's aggressive, but he just gets on with it. So my positive is that hopefully, as the reports are showing, his injury seems to be only a few days. I don't know whether these bigger bases are made of some harder material than the last couple of seasons, but our players seem to be hurting their fingers on them. It's a bit like Gary Lineker's toe injury, which curtailed his career in soccer. We seem to be hurting our fingers on bases, which is a bit embarrassing.
I thought you were going to mention Gary Lineker soiling himself in the Japanese league then.
Soiling his kecks.
Was it not an Italian 90? He did it.
Was it Italian 90? I thought it was when he was playing in the
actual World
Japanese
Cup.
league.
So
was Scotland in that World Cup, Grant?
We were for 10 days, yeah. That's how we do it. 10 days, then there's no beer left. So my positive is Gunnar Henderson, who today got 3 walks. All right, not the most exciting of plays for your most dynamic player, but he looked absolutely locked in at the plate. I think he is a man who is just about, if the Orioles are going to go on a run, he is going to be the catalyst for it. In the last 15 games, he is batting average 388, on base percentage of 500, slugging 449. So he's locked in. He's the guy that we need to kickstart this offense. Hopefully Westberg is back this week. Hopefully Gary Sanchez can justify his salary and be the guy for us 2 days out of 3. But yeah, Gunnar Henderson looks in mid-season form right now. And
he managed to hit at least 2 Yankees fans with his bat. So, we've got to give him that as well.
Yeah. Look at the super slow-mos on that. That was quite a move.
like Negan in The Walking Dead, eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
What have you got for us then, Thomas? What's your take on a positive note to end today's episode on?
I'm gonna go with the 2 Ramones. That's just Ramon Liliano has been outstanding in the outfield for us. He's been productive at the plate. And Ramon Urias, I think he's one of the most underrated Orioles players of recent times. I really do like them 2 guys. Honourable mention to Dylan Carlson, because we mention him every episode that he's just doing the job, and he's been a fantastic little plug, what I say, for a bat that is sinking loads of water.
You can put it on the back of his season highlight DVD.
Something like that. Yeah, I'm trying to think of something clever there.
Thomas says he's a great plug.
My brain shit its kecks. I couldn't come up with anything better than a bath sinking loads of water. So yeah,
he'll take it. But he has been sort of this season's. Was it Aaron Hicks? He's one of the sort of unexpected.
Yeah. I mean, the
successes.
thing is, we've probably got him next season as well. So he's could be a very handy guy to have in the organisation.
Absolutely.
Could be.
Well, thank you for your questions, everyone, and hope we've given you a bit of insight amongst some of the doom and gloom. There is some positivity, and thank you for listening to Woes Across the Pond. We'll see you next time. Cheers.
Cheers, folks.
Cheers. See you next time.
That's it for this episode of O's Across the Pond, bringing Birdland to Europe 1 episode at a time. Be sure to subscribe, share and follow along as we keep the Orioles conversation going from this side of the Atlantic. Until next time, stay loud, stay proud and let's go O's.